Ladies and gentlemen, today we're diving into a powerful journey, one of mastering your life decisions and creating a path that aligns deeply with your purpose, biology, and personal style. Inspired by the work of neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Huberman, we will explore 5 essential signs not just about decision making, but how your unique style and brain wiring can guide your life forward. Let's begin. Dopamine is widely misunderstood. Many people associate it with quick bursts of pleasure, likes on social media, junk food, or a win in a video game. But dopamine is not about pleasure alone. It's about motivation, drive, and the pursuit of things that we perceive as meaningful or rewarding. It is a molecule of anticipation more than it is of satisfaction. Understanding how dopamine works gives us a powerful tool to guide our life decisions and shape a path that is aligned with long-term goals rather than short-term distractions. The first thing to understand is that dopamine is released in response to our perception of progress toward a goal. This means that you don't have to achieve something big to feel dopamine. You just need to feel like you're moving in the right direction. That sensation of "I'm making progress" releases small, steady pulses of dopamine that reinforce your behavior and keep you going. It's this very system that can be used as an internal compass to guide major life decisions. Let's say you're considering 2 different careers. One might offer instant rewards, money, status, external praise. The other might not offer much in the short term, but you feel curious, excited, or mentally energized just thinking about it. That sense of internal curiosity, interest, and momentum is a clue that your dopamine system is responding to that path. It doesn't mean the path will be easy, but it does mean that it could be sustainable because your brain is rewarding you along the way, not just at the end. Now, this doesn't mean you should chase dopamine recklessly. That's a common trap. If you spike dopamine too frequently through artificial means, scrolling for novelty, eating sugar, or seeking constant approval, you burn out your system. The dopamine system is governed by relativity. Every spike comes with a drop, and if you spike it too high or too often, your baseline level of motivation drops over time. That's when people feel flat, distracted, or directionless. So, the goal is not more dopamine. It's balanced, sustained dopamine, and that comes from engaging in activities with meaning, direction, and effort. One of the most powerful insights here is that effort itself increases dopamine, but only when the effort is perceived as voluntary and purposeful. If you choose a path and willingly engage with its challenges, your brain releases more dopamine than if you are forced into something. This is why choosing your direction, even when it's hard, builds motivation over time. Your brain interprets it as meaningful work and rewards you. To truly guide your life decisions using this principle, you need to develop awareness of your internal state when you consider options. Are you energized by the thought of a certain direction, even if it seems uncertain or risky? That's a valuable clue. Are you drained by the thought of continuing a path, even if it appears successful on the outside? That could mean you're misaligned and not engaging your dopamine system effectively. Another key is learning to reward the process, not just the outcome. If you only feel motivated when you achieve the big goal, getting the job, winning the deal, or launching the product, you're setting yourself up for a dopamine crash. Instead, you want to teach your brain to associate dopamine with effort, progress, and small wins. One way to do this is by mentally celebrating the steps you take, finishing a focused hour of work, having a difficult conversation, or making a difficult but right decision. Acknowledging and emotionally reinforcing these steps helps your brain release dopamine and keeps the motivational system engaged. It's also crucial to protect your baseline dopamine. That means limiting overstimulation, avoiding constant novelty, multitasking, or instant gratification. The more you rely on external stimuli to feel good, the harder it becomes for your internal goals to trigger a strong motivational response. Take breaks from high-stimulation activities, get sunlight early in the day, sleep consistently, and engage in physical activity, all of which stabilize your dopamine system and make you more sensitive to the rewards of meaningful progress. In short, your brain is already designed to guide you. It's just a matter of learning how to read the signals. That small sense of drive you feel when something clicks with your interest, that's dopamine, that calm excitement when you envision a goal and feel a pull toward it. That's your biology telling you, this is the way, listen to it, not the noise. And if you can make decisions based on what sustains motivation, not just what spikes it, you'll be able to build a path that is not only successful, but deeply fulfilling over time. Stress is not the enemy. In fact, stress is essential for adaptation, growth, and learning. The key lies not in eliminating stress, but in understanding how to interpret and use it as a signal rather than treating it as something to avoid. From a biological standpoint, stress initiates a cascade of responses in the brain and body designed to promote focus, alertness, and behavioral change. When harnessed correctly, this stress response becomes a powerful tool for transformation. When we experience a challenge, whether emotional, physical, or cognitive, the body releases a series of neurochemicals including epinephrine, norepinephrine, and cortisol. These chemicals increase alertness, sharpen attention, elevate heart rate, and prime the brain to respond. This is the body's way of saying, something important is happening, pay attention. It's a built-in learning signal. Many people interpret this stress response as a warning sign to stop. They feel a quickened heart rate, sweaty palms, or mental tension and assume something is wrong. But in reality, these responses signal that you are entering a state of neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to change itself. In other words, stress is a gateway to growth. If you don't abort the process, the critical thing to understand is that the brain does not change when it is comfortable. Neuroplasticity, the ability for your brain to rewire, adapt, or strengthen itself, occurs when you are outside your comfort zone. Stress, especially when mild to moderate and voluntary, is what pushes the nervous system into a malleable state. It's how new skills are learned, behaviors are restructured, and paths are changed. Consider a situation where you're learning something new: public speaking, starting a business, or navigating a difficult conversation. The early moments are filled with tension, doubt, and uncertainty. These feelings are not indicators of failure. They are necessary components of the rewiring process. Without them, change wouldn't occur. What's even more interesting is that the timing of reward matters. If you can stay with the stress, ride the wave, so to speak, and then allow recovery after the challenge, the brain marks that entire sequence as meaningful. That's when you get the greatest adaptation. The key is to endure the difficulty long enough for your brain to encode it as a valuable experience, then allow for calm afterward to lock in the learning. People who build resilience don't avoid stress, they learn to contextualize it. They interpret it not as a threat, but as a signal: this is hard, therefore I'm changing. That mindset shift alters the biology of the experience. When you believe a challenge is helping you grow, your stress response becomes more adaptive and less damaging. Cortisol levels are better regulated, focus improves, and recovery accelerates. But not all stress is equal. Chronic, uncontrollable stress where there's no agency or meaning does have harmful effects. The difference lies in perception and voluntary engagement. When you choose the challenge, when you know why you're engaging with discomfort, your system responds differently. That's why it's essential to pair stress with purpose. Purpose transforms the stress response from damaging to constructive. There's also a time-based aspect to this. If you expose yourself to manageable stress early in the day, like deliberate cold exposure, physical exercise, or focused work blocks, you train your nervous system to handle stress more efficiently. You become more tolerant of internal agitation, which means later stressors don't hit as hard. Your baseline level of control and calm rises. Another important aspect is recovery. Stress is only beneficial if followed by periods of deliberate rest. Sleep, deep breathing, non-sleep deep rest protocols, and time in nature all help reset the autonomic nervous system. These periods of calm are not just luxuries, they're where the consolidation of learning and growth happens. Stress opens the door, but recovery is what allows you to walk through it. So when you find yourself in moments of stress, pay close attention. Are you overwhelmed and reacting automatically, or are you aware, engaged, and enduring something difficult because it serves your long-term development? The difference is everything. The second scenario is where transformation begins. Rather than fleeing from stress or numbing it, learn to pause and say, "This feels intense, but this is the edge where change happens." That reframing doesn't eliminate stress, but it empowers you to use it. Over time, you'll start to recognize the pattern: discomfort, effort, adaptation. And you'll become more resilient, more focused, and more aligned with a life path that grows as you do. The ultimate shift is moving from resisting stress to respecting it. It's not your enemy, it's your signal. One that says you're in the zone where growth begins. When people think of consistency, they often imagine it as a personality trait, something that a person either naturally has or doesn't. But that's not accurate. Consistency isn't something you're born with. It's a biological pattern that can be trained, supported, and sustained by understanding how your brain and body operate best. It's not about motivation alone. It's about respecting the architecture of your nervous system and building a rhythm that works with it, not against it. Every day, your internal state is governed by rhythms specifically. Your circadian rhythm, which operates on roughly a 24-hour cycle. This rhythm affects everything: alertness, hormone release, mood, energy levels, and even your capacity to focus or relax. Ignoring this rhythm, by waking up at different times every day, eating or working irregularly, or surrounding yourself with chaotic stimuli, creates internal disorder. On the other hand, respecting this rhythm builds consistency from the ground up. One of the most fundamental principles is light timing. Exposure to natural sunlight early in the day, especially within the first 30 to 60 minutes of waking, sets the timing for your entire system. It activates neurons in the brain that trigger cortisol release at the right time, promoting alertness in the morning while also starting the countdown for melatonin to be released later that night. This simple habit regulates not only your energy levels, but your entire cycle of wakefulness, productivity, and sleep. Over time, this becomes one of the core pillars of behavioral consistency. Another key factor is habit stacking within your natural energy windows. Everyone has windows during the day where their brain is more naturally alert and focused, usually mid, morning, and early afternoon. These windows are ideal for deep work, learning, and decision making. If you can consistently anchor your most important tasks during these windows and make them part of a routine, your brain begins to associate those hours with focus and progress. This is not just psychological, it's neurochemical conditioning. You're literally wiring your brain to expect effort and reward during certain parts of the day. Likewise, the brain thrives on predictable transitions. For example, ending your workday with a routine that signals the shift into relaxation, such as a short walk, stretching, or journaling, helps deactivate the stress response and restore balance. When these patterns are repeated, your brain and body no longer have to guess what's next. That predictability reduces cognitive load and increases emotional stability, freeing up more mental energy for decision making and creativity. It's important to note that consistency doesn't mean rigidity. Life is dynamic and flexibility is essential. But even flexible people can operate from a core rhythm. Think of it like music. You can improvise all you want, but there's always a beat underneath. That beat, your baseline of sleep, light, movement, and mental focus, keeps you anchored even as other parts of your life shift. Many people chase motivation, thinking that consistency comes from feeling inspired, but motivation is fleeting. It's not reliable. What's reliable is structure. Once you establish a framework that aligns with your biology, momentum builds. And that momentum creates its own form of motivation, one that's grounded not in excitement, but in progress. The brain loves predictability when it's paired with small, regular wins. There's also a neurochemical reason for this. When you engage in consistent behavior that leads to reward, whether it's finishing a workout, writing for an hour, or studying something challenging, your brain releases dopamine, not just in response to the outcome, but in anticipation of it. Over time, just starting the activity becomes pleasurable. That's how habits form on a cellular level. You're reinforcing circuits in the brain through repetition and reward. The mistake many people make is starting with intensity instead of rhythm. They go all in for a few days or weeks, hoping to force transformation. But the brain doesn't operate that way. Neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to change, requires repetition over time, not bursts of energy. Just like you wouldn't expect to build muscle by going to the gym once a month, you can't expect psychological or behavioral transformation without daily consistency. Finally, it's helpful to think of consistency as a style of living, not something you do for one specific goal, but the way you approach your life as a whole. Your identity starts to shift. You begin to see yourself as someone who shows up, who keeps promises to themselves, who builds rather than reacts. That internal trust becomes self-reinforcing. In the end, consistency isn't about perfection, it's about rhythm. It's about knowing that your biology supports progress when it's predictable, and once you align with that natural rhythm, you're not forcing discipline, you're flowing with it. One of the most misunderstood and underutilized tools for personal growth is feedback. Most people say they want to improve, but what they often mean is that they want to improve without discomfort. That's not how the brain works. True change, deep, lasting neurobiological change requires correction, and correction almost always comes with friction. From a brain-based perspective, feedback plays a crucial role in learning. The nervous system is designed to make predictions, take actions, and then adjust based on what happens next. When your behavior leads to unexpected outcomes, especially ones that challenge your ego or comfort zone, it signals a prediction error. This is a critical moment for neuroplasticity. It means your brain is being told, you thought this would work, but it didn't. Let's update the system. These updates are the foundation of growth. But most people avoid them. Why? Because feedback often feels threatening. It touches on identity, and the brain is wired to protect your sense of self. When someone gives you honest feedback, whether it's about how you work, how you communicate, or how you show up in the world, it triggers the amygdala, the area involved in processing threat. Even if there's no physical danger, your body may respond with elevated heart rate, defensiveness, or withdrawal. The key is learning to reinterpret feedback, not as an attack, but as an opportunity. In biological terms, this means retraining your nervous system to see correction as something useful, not painful. That's entirely possible. In fact, elite performers, whether in sports, science, business, or art, develop this capacity. They seek feedback actively. They build systems around it, not because they enjoy discomfort, but because they understand its value. Here's what makes this work. The brain is more likely to change when feedback is precise, timely, and actionable. If you get vague criticism, your brain doesn't know what to do with it. But when feedback is clear, this specific thing you did can be improved this way. The prefrontal cortex engages, and adaptation begins. It becomes a loop. Behavior right arrow feedback, right arrow refinement, right arrow repetition, right arrow mastery. And here's something even more powerful. When you ask for feedback rather than wait to be given it, your brain interprets it differently. Voluntary engagement changes the neurochemical context. You feel more in control, which lowers defensiveness and increases openness. In fact, voluntary challenge and voluntary stress consistently show less harmful effects on the body than the same stress experienced passively. This is especially true with interpersonal feedback. What most people miss is that feedback is information, not judgment. It's data about how your actions land in the world. Sometimes that data hurts, but that doesn't make it wrong. It makes it useful. In the same way that a GPS tells you when you're off course, feedback helps you reorient. The faster you get it, and the more clearly you process it, the faster you grow. This mindset shift can be trained. For example, if after every project or conversation, you ask yourself, what did I learn? What would I do differently? What was the response from others? You begin to prime your brain for adaptive reflection. You normalize the act of self-inquiry. You also reduce the sting when someone else offers feedback because you've already begun processing it internally. Another powerful tool is building feedback rituals. For example, at the end of a day or a week, ask a mentor, colleague, or peer, "What's one thing I could have done better?" And not 5 things. Just one. This keeps it manageable. It tells your nervous system, this is safe, this is expected, this is part of how we grow. Over time, your identity shifts. You stop associating feedback with failure, and you start seeing it as fuel. There's also a biological reason why this matters. When feedback leads to successful behavior correction, your brain gets a dopamine reward. That's right, when you adjust your behavior and see a better outcome, your system reinforces it chemically. It says, yes, this is the direction to go. This internal reward system makes you more eager to seek input next time, creating a positive feedback loop for personal evolution. So if your goal is to guide your life with precision and progress, you have to move past comfort. Comfort often means repeating old behaviors, even if they're suboptimal. Feedback means getting the truth about how to become better, faster, smarter, more emotionally aware, more effective. And the truth, when used properly, is not an insult, it's an upgrade. Growth doesn't happen in silence. It happens in correction. If you want to change your life path, seek feedback more than approval. And over time, you'll find that feedback is not something to fear, it's something to welcome.